Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawk fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers. We're here to talk Seahawks football. Got a great show planned for you today. This is the first in our series of looks at position groups on the offense and defense for the 2025 roster, now standing at around 90 players as we head into OTAs and mandatory minicamp coming up in June, followed by a little break, and then into the training camp of 2025 in mid to late July there. Welcome in, Keith. We're starting out with quarterbacks today.
Yeah, quarterbacks. And a controversial topic. I think there's a lot of variance on what fans and pundits think as far as where Seattle's at the quarterback position and whether or not this team is ready for to be competitive based on the quarterback position. So a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really kind of how this is set up, right? It's like the fans feel one way. They're always going to be optimistic, especially this time of the year. You've got local guys like us that cover the team and feel a certain way based on the history we have of looking at these things for a long period of time and just seeing the roster and comparing it to everything we know. We feel pretty good about it. And then the national guys are looking at a couple of main barometers when they look at these things this time of year. They're looking at us moving off of Geno Smith, DK Metcalf. Are we better or are we worse on offense? We really didn't address the offensive line, save one draft pick who hasn't played it down in the NFL. So that's why you're seeing some mixed messages when you start talking about this team. Depending on who you talk to nationally, it could be a fourth place finish in the NFC West, missing the playoffs, winning less than 9 games, and we take a step back. If you talk to most people locally, from radio to blogging to YouTube channel guys like us and podcast guys, it looks like we've gotten better, or at least given ourselves a chance to be better and more efficient on offense, run the ball better. The coaching staff is better. Sam Darnold is kind of a lateral move, if you will, maybe to Geno Smith, and he got younger there, cheaper. And then we brought Drew Lock back, and then we drafted this dynamic player. So all in all, things are looking pretty optimistic. Second year for Mike McDonald and the defense. Brought in a couple pieces, had a real nice draft piece to add to that. There's a lot of excitement building about that. So this room, though, I think, and especially at the top with Sam Darnold, is why there's some reservations about how far this team can go this year. Let's have this conversation with that in mind and see if we can either dispel that or we feel like maybe that's still really an option, is that we either stay about the same or slightly take a step back, and maybe we're not as good as we think that we are. How do you feel about it, Keith?
Well, my opinion hasn't changed in the research for doing all of this. I think that we are not necessarily better, but we aren't worse. And given the fact that are you talking
about just the quarterback position or the offense as a whole?
Just the quarterback position. There was so much dysfunction just on offense everywhere, from the line to the coaching staff, especially to the quarterback, that the fact that the team is doing things to fix the other parts of it. If it's a lateral move at quarterback, I actually feel better about the offense this year. But at quarterback, I don't think it's an improvement. I don't think it's a major loss either. I don't see how we could come up and be like, oh, this is um, a situation where a player is going to be significantly worse this year than he was in the past.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at Geno Smith was a fine quarterback, had a few really solid seasons here, was a great leader as far as being able to bounce back from adversity, leading the team in the huddle, taking command of the offense, knowing that really well, doing all the little things that you want a quarterback to do for your franchise. He was great. And Sam Darnold is also that. So when you take a look at those intangible things about Sam Darnold, he's also known to be a good leader in the locker room, good command of the offense, coach's best friend, essentially solid guy, and solid skill set all the way around, right? Good arm, good intangibles, good pocket mobility, moving around the pocket to gain some extra time before he sets his feet and throws the ball. All that stuff. Had a solid year last year, really solid, like career year for him. 4,300 yards passing. The touchdown to interception ratio was outstanding. Went to the Pro Bowl. Dropped off a couple games there at the end, but overall, normally, under normal circumstances, this quarterback wouldn't have been available to Seattle. He had that kind of a year. Minnesota, on most years, would have re-signed him to a similar deal, I would assume, that Seattle did, but they drafted a kid, the year before in McCarthy that needs a chance. And so they moved off Sam Darnold. Seattle was there at the right time to make all that happen. And here we are now with regards to, for me, making this argument about, are we better? Are we worse? I would say if you go beyond just the quarterback spot and you look at the offense as a whole, I would say we improved. I think that we have better fits in the wide receiver room for this scheme. I think our offensive line is going to benefit additionally from this scheme. I think our running back room benefits better from this scheme. And so if you want to count coaching into this thing, I think it's a big deal for this season. And then Sam Darnold, I think can, if he plays close to where he played in Minnesota, we have a really chance to be something special, I think, this year. If he falls back to league average, 16th overall quarterback statistically all the way around, can the offense do enough to put us into games and get us in a position to make the playoffs? I mean, I think that to me is the bigger question is, if Sam Darnold falls back a little bit, can we still do something overall to get into the playoffs and win a game or two? I'm not so sure. But I think the drop off though between Geno and Sam on a game to game basis still gives us an opportunity to do all the things. I think if you compare Geno to Sam Darnold from 2024, I think Sam Darnold had definitely a better season by all accounts.
True.
And if Geno has that same season this year with Seattle, if he didn't get traded, I think that we still technically got a little better, but Geno, would be on the way out. But we'll see. I think Sam Darnold gives us a chance. When I was doing the research, like you just said, you felt a little better overall, or didn't really change your opinion. I kind of felt slightly less secure in his ability to kind of maintain the Minnesota output that he had in 2024. And I think there's going to be slight regression there. But I think overall the efficiency of the offense keeps him in the safe zone, so to speak.
Yeah. Again, I go back to, this is Sam Darnold. If you look at his career numbers as a whole, right, his 7 years in the league, and you compare those to, Geno Smith's last 3 years, that ends up being unfair to Sam Darnold because you're keeping his bad years, but not keeping Geno's. But at the same time, I don't think comparing the two with um, their entire careers list, thrown in there is fair either because they're not the quarterbacks they were when they played for the Jets. And we've seen Darnold develop and change over the last 3 seasons as he's gotten an opportunity to get away from New York and find some better coaching, and especially the year in San Francisco right before his year in Minnesota, where um, Kyle Shanahan could not stop raving about all the things that Sam Darnold had been doing, even though he was the backup there. And so it was, yeah, I mean, he's looked at as a guy that, at least in San Francisco, he's looked at a guy that was ready to be a starter and ready to do really good things. He went to Minnesota where he had the opportunity to do that, and he did great things. So, I don't know. I have a hard time because he's has one really good year as a starter, um, in this league, and whereas Geno has 3 good years as a starter. Well, 1.5 good years as a starter. But also they weren't last year. You know what I mean? So it's how do we figure out who each person really is? You've got 1 year
Well, that's what
of
2025 is for, right?
yeah. I mean, that's really what it comes down to because trying to compare, if you go back and you look at trying to compare anybody to Geno's 2022 is going to be really hard for anybody to stand up to. But Geno wasn't that player in 2024. He was not that good. Um, Sam Darnold's 2024 was awesome, but he'd never been that good at any point before. And so this is not a simple comparison to try and figure out where we are. So what I try to do is I look, okay, um, what were the things that people said about Darnold that gave everyone pause? And it was that he had a really, really good offensive line. He didn't face a lot of pressure. Um, and when he did, he wasn't as good. And going through and when I was looking at this, that part actually isn't true, which I found very interesting. Because when I look at number of times blitzed, he was blitzed the same number of times on fewer pass attempts, so a higher rate. How many times was he hurried? A lot more than Geno Smith on fewer pass attempts. He was hit about the same on fewer pass attempts.
This is what I was talking to you about the last couple of shows where it's kind of an interesting look if you take a little deeper dive. I mean, the reputation is he struggled, but the numbers point slightly different. In fact, he was sacked 48 times too, so he was under pressure there.
Yeah,
and the pressure rate was 8.9 or whatever, so it was slightly high for league average.
Well, depending on what you use as the barometer for what a pressure is, according to Pro Football Reference, the pressure rate on Geno Smith was 21.9%. And on Sam Darnold, it was 24.5%, meaning that Darnold was under pressure more often than Geno Smith was. And he had such a significantly better statistical year, being under pressure more often.
So when I was talking to you a couple of weeks ago and we had this conversation, and I think that we hadn't done a deep dive yet into the quarterbacks, and you were kind of looking at things somewhat superficially and just kind of based on your gut and instincts and all that stuff. You kind of made the reference or the argument that, Sam Darnold sucks, or not sucks, but is really bad under pressure, and it's only going to be worse here. What do you think about that now? Like, as far as looking at that a little bit more and trying to project for Seattle's blocking scheme and offense?
Well, I think that, okay, just to back, it was that my point when we were talking a couple weeks ago was that Darnold was a better quarterback when not pressured and a worse quarterback when pressured compared to Geno.
Okay.
And I think that, and you look at, okay, the pressure percent's going to be higher in Seattle. Well, it turned out it's not. I mean, it might end up being this year, but if you look at last year, it wasn't. The perception on Geno was that he was always under pressure, that he could not drop back and throw a pass without someone in his face.
Sometimes it felt like that, yeah.
It felt like that. It really did. But he was under pressure at, less than Darnold was. The year before, 2023, he was under pressure 25.5% of his passes. It was only 21.9 last year. So there's, the offensive line actually was better as a pass blocking team last year than it was the year before, and his stats went down. So I think we can safely say that.
Do you think that was
drop-off
because
was
Seattle's
not just
offense was so
line.
predictable and lack of running game really kind of allowed teams to tee off on the offense in coverage, covering receivers, all that, when you account for all of it?
No, for last year? No, because if the pressure rate went down, that means if teams are teeing off,
the back end, if you drop 8 in the box, if you don't stack the box and you drop an additional guy into coverage, that makes it harder to throw, even though the pressure isn't there.
Okay. Yes and no. I don't know.
I guess that's what I'm talking about. My question is, if you try to go over to Minnesota, I mean, Minnesota's got all the weapons and on offense, and does that help Sam Darnold, even though he's under pressure more and was able to find more success overall? Is some of that attributed to the weapons that he had? Did
Geno Smith not have all the weapons with JSN and DK Metcalf and Lockett and the two running backs and
right.
Noah Fant,
but a coordinator that didn't help him at all with any sort of consistent running game, didn't use the tight end room really to its fullest. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I'm
just trying to find reasons. Like, is it just Geno Smith was a much worse quarterback than he was in 2022, 23, and or is Sam Darnold a much better quarterback at this stage of his career than Geno? I mean, what are you trying to say?
What I'm trying to say is that the reasons why I had reservations about the move from Geno to Sam Darnold was because of this pressure situation. And when you start to look at the actual deep dive of how they did under pressure, and you get the idea that that Sam Darnold was not worse under pressure than Geno. And one of the things that you said was like, well, it's because Geno was under pressure when teams were just they weren't stacking the box. They were dropping everyone back. Geno was blitzed the same number of times as Sam Darnold. So they faced the same amount of guys dropping back into coverage and having extra guys back. And so, yeah, okay. I just look, all things considered. I think that the idea that Darnold is worse as when the pressure is there, I think that line of reasoning starts to disappear. There is one thing that I still think that we haven't discussed that would give Geno the odds, as maybe having a better statistical year in Seattle versus Darnold, but the pressure aspect of it, I think that's way overblown. having looked at all of the stats and the deep dive of how often they faced pressure and what they did under pressure.
So there's hope. So in addition to all of that, I do believe that Seattle has improved its offensive line, just because guys that were there before had some starts, have some experience, have another season. They're in the weight room. They've got a new coaching staff, new scheme. I think that's really going to be very helpful. And then just the way that the calls are made to help balance the offense is underrated. I mean, it's going to be a huge difference compared to last year. We didn't have any semblance of run game or semblance of consistency in that run game and the way that it was put together and balanced enough so that the run and pass stuff worked together. And we'll have that this year. So there'll be that. I think Sam has the opportunity. Now I threw out there, well, this is what 2025 is for. I think that's exactly what it is. It's like, we don't know exactly. It's hard to project. This is Sam Darnold's opportunity, really, to show that he's the guy, that he's a quarterback that's going to be consistent now that Minnesota year is not an outlier, that it's something that can duplicate even in a new system with a new offensive line and new weapons around him. He can be statistically in that same realm and operate efficiently. He's got that opportunity. I mean, it's sitting right in front of him. And I think that Seattle has a decent team around him. I mean, if you take a look at the roster around him, I think Seattle's done a great job of putting it all together and giving him an opportunity to succeed with this scheme and the players. So I don't think that Sam Darnold is going to be the reason why Seattle isn't successful on offense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The one, like I said, the one caveat to all of this part of the discussion that we haven't got to yet is the number of so Pro Football Reference has a stat for bad throws and bad throw percents, and it's basically what that has to do with is whether or not they're on target, whether or not it's a catchable ball. If even if there's no defense, would it have been possible for that pass to have been completed? And the bad throw percent from Sam Darnold is at 15%, and at Geno is only 10. So that means there were times when Sam Darnold just missed. Granted, there's times when Geno just missed, but that number is higher than for Darnold than it is Geno Smith, and take that.
Does that include all the deep balls that Sam Darnold threw? That includes all the throws. All throws. Yeah.
So, and that's one. But right. So then you look at that, and you're like, okay, maybe. But then you have to look at the independent air yards per pass attempt, right? How deep, average depth of target, if you will. How deep are they throwing? Geno was throwing short and underneath constantly. Very, very low average depth of target, where Darnold was throwing deep a lot. His average depth of target was over 9 yards. And that is freaking crazy. That's like he's throwing down the field. Geno's was 4.7.
Yeah, so, that's a huge asterisk right there, because if you're taking shots, you give up a little bit of accuracy, but you're taking shots. I mean, that's why Sam Darnold threw 35 touchdowns and Geno Smith threw 20.
Yeah.
and they had the same interceptions. So it is interesting. I find it fascinating. I think he's going to be a great fit. I think, the intangible stuff I'm very, very comfortable with Sam Darnold. He's just, everything you really want in a leader on your team. And I think he's going to fall right in there, and we'll find out. We'll find out. I mean, this is definitely the year. Now, let's talk about the other guys on the roster. So we got rid of Sam Howell. We ended up flipping up him over to Minnesota, actually, for a little draft compensation. We brought Drew Lock back onto the roster right before the draft, so they were able to move off of Sam Howell. Drew Lock, he's a guy. He's 28 years old now. We've already seen him on the roster. He's got 36 games overall with 28 starts. And with the Giants last year, he had 8 appearances, 5 game starts, a little over 1,100 yards, 59% completion percentage, which is pretty low, 6 TDs to 5 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 75.5. So not all that great. I think he had one game where he stood out and looked really good, and the other ones were just kind of blah. But so was the entire team. So you take all that with a grain of salt. We already know what Drew Lock is. He's a 50-50 guy. Like I said before, the guy that's going to give you an opportunity to win 50% of the starts that he has. And so as far as a backup in the NFL, he's kind of perfect. He's inexpensive. He's reliable. He's a good roster guy. He's a good support guy to the starting quarterback, and he can go out and win a game for you if under bad circumstances where you've got your main quarterback out for a game or 2 games. You could throw Drew Lock out there and you're still going to be in it because your defense is going to give you an opportunity. So that's all you can ask for with him, and that's really all I have to say.
Yeah. So Drew Lock left in part because there was a belief in his camp and a little, he had never really gotten his chance as a starter. Yeah, he did in Denver, but those teams were bad, and he was younger, and he'd gotten some coaching and had wanted an opportunity to go out and show that he could be a starting caliber quarterback. He went to New York. He got some starts. Now he's back with Seattle. Is the Drew Lock as a potential starter narrative done? Is it gone at this point? Because otherwise, why would he be back with Seattle?
Well, it is this year. I think that there is an opportunity here if Sam Darnold were to be injured. So we have another quarterback on the roster that we all drafted, and we all know who that is, Jalen Milroe. But he's great. He's going to be great and play for some packages and we'll talk about this, but Drew Lock is still going to be quarterback number 2, I think, when it comes to playing for Sam Darnold in an entire game. If Sam was to miss a game or 2, Drew Lock would be the quarterback because Jalen Milroe would still have packages that he would operate in. Drew Lock is capable of running the offense and running all of the plays out of the offense in any playbook in the NFL. He's proven that. We know that that's going to happen. He's that guy. Jalen Milroe is not ready yet to run an entire NFL playbook, and that'll be evident as time goes on that he has some things to work on. Now, sure, he can be handed a package of 10, 15 plays, and he can be very, very, very good at those 10 or 15 plays. And Seattle's going to kind of go, well, why isn't he playing more? Well, we'll talk about it. But yeah, I think Drew Lock, his opportunity to be a starter would come from injury. And if he plays well, and if Sam was out a longer period of time and Drew Lock played well, it'd give him an opportunity to earn maybe another opportunity somewhere else.
Well, but that's what he had. That's what he had earned, and that's what he did. Is he had that opportunity? He went to New York, had the opportunity to play significant minutes, snaps, and played his way back into a backup role.
Right. But
So
he had a
um,
really bad roster.
he
But
did.
I guess that's no excuse in the NFL, is it? You've just got to be ready to turn your game on at any time without regard to any of the weapons or anything surrounding you.
And so that's my thought, is like, the idea is like, oh yeah, if Darnold were to get hurt and Locke were to become the starter and play well, but that's a couple of ifs that I think don't work in Drew Locke's favor, because if he was capable
let me ask you
of
this
doing
question.
that, wouldn't he have earned that starting job last year when he left to go earn a starting job?
Here's what will provide you the answer based on how you answer this question.
Okay.
If Sam Darnold looked like he was going to miss more than half the season, would Seattle turn to Drew Lock to be its starting quarterback, or would they go out and try to find something else?
They would not go out and try and find something else. They don't have the draft capital to do that. And honestly,
or even a guy off the on his couch, or like a Marcus Mariota or whatever, like a guy that's a backup guy on another roster or whatever, or
I think they would
on a practice squad somewhere.
Yeah, but okay, are those players an upgrade over Drew Lock? It's not that. Is Drew Lock? I don't think they would have signed him if they felt Marcus Mariota was a better player right now. They would have signed Marcus Mariota. And so those players just aren't out there. And so I just I struggle to see them not turning it over to Locke, but
taking the season loss. Just
I mean,
if
they were okay, if they were 6-2, and Darnold goes down, right? How long does it take with Drew Lock before you go, okay, this isn't going to work, and we're too good to let our quarterback problem derail the season? Because if they're 6-2 and Darnold goes down and they lose a couple games and now they're 6-4, like, it's hard at that point to just be like, well, too bad, lost season.
I think you do have a sunk cost here, so you've got Drew Lock with no other options out there other than somebody else's throwaway, and or you've got Jalen Milroe that you could develop. Do you take the opportunity in the season that's going down fast, and you give but you'd also have to weigh the damage you might do to a Jalen Milroe who's not ready, and throw him out there. You'd have to be very careful.
You'd have to be very careful, and this is one of the things that NFL teams don't do well. Is they love to throw their young quarterbacks out there and ruin them. The Jets, we saw that with Sam Darnold and Geno Smith.
You end up with situations like Jaden Daniels, but Jaden Daniels was drafted at the top of the draft for a reason.
Well, yeah,
Jalen Milroe was drafted close to pick number 100 for a reason.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels is also the exception, not the rule. Most rookie quarterbacks, there's a major growing pains. Like the speed of the game in the NFL is just so much faster, and it takes time. There's a development process that must happen, and I don't think comparing anybody to what Jaden Daniels did last year is going to be fair to anybody, right? Daniels is not the norm. Go look at what CJ Stroud did the year before, right? I think that is a better best case scenario for any rookie quarterback, because he played well. He did.
Yeah, Bo Nix had a nice year. you
And
know?
Bo Nix had a nice year last year too. So, but those are, but they didn't play at that like Pro Bowl level, like star level that Jaden Daniels did.
Right.
I think
Right.
with a rookie quarterback, you tamp your expectations down a little bit.
No, sure. No,
Even for
sure.
those drafted at the top of the draft. But Milroe isn't ready for that. Go look at his mechanics. Go look at his accuracy.
Yeah.
Watch him play a game. And like if you can find like the I go back and look at the college football playoff games, right? That he played in, and just watch him try and throw, and what his feet are doing when he's throwing downfield. And unless he sets his feet because he has to in order to throw the ball deep, his feet are all over the place and his accuracy is crap. He has so much discipline that he needs to learn mechanically before he's ready to play at the next level. And I think that you could ruin him by throwing him out there as a full-time starter right now, because he's going to be looking for what works. What can he do that gets him out of situations, that gets him to where he is not getting sacked or getting the ball out of his hands. And he's going to be developing bad habits, because it happens to work at this time.
Right.
But it's not what's best for every time.
So
he
there's
needs that opportunity to develop.
There's certainly things that Milroe does as a quarterback that you can work with, that he enters the league with, that a lot of quarterbacks struggle with. Going through his progressions without bailing out, the pocket pressure and presence is excellent. Really, like he's quiet in the pocket and he's confident. You could potentially ruin that. Going through his progressions, is something that he's actually really good at. He may not be accurate.
Faster. He's faster at going through, but he'll at least go through them. A lot of rookie quarterbacks come in to the league with, they have their primary read. If that's not there, go. Or they have their primary read. If that's not there, pick up their secondary read, and that's as far into a progression as they go. You'll see Milroe in those college football playoff games going to his third and fourth read, which it's pretty rare for a college quarterback.
Yes. The problem is there's a high variance in the accuracy.
Yes.
And when the decision making is bad, it's really bad. Mm-hmm. Like he'll throw into double coverage that'll lead to an interception. He'll hold the ball too long and take a critical loss. Now, while he could learn to throw the ball away under pressure, he does pretty good. The part he gets really in trouble with is his ball placement. He ruins yards after catch opportunities with his receivers, and he's going to have to work on that. But he's not a high risk thrower. Like his 2.1% turnover worthy throws is
really good.
Top 5 in college football. And in fairness, he led the year's draft class in time to throw metrics at 3.1 seconds overall, with only a 6.2 scramble rate, which means he stood in the pocket, he tried to make the throws and the progressions without bailing. So in the NFL, though, it's not so easy. And the way that you ruin him is you force him into bailing. And he ends up bailing all the time because he's got that weapon. It's almost a guarantee that he's going to pick up yards with that weapon. And quite honestly, he's probably a higher percentage of using those legs to score a touchdown 20 plus yards than he is throwing it for 20 plus yards at this point in his career. But so there's a lot there. But the thing is, dude, right now, he could be, based on his size, weight, and speed, and his ability to have agility and find soft spots and beat defenders close to the line of scrimmage and simply destroying angles on the edge. He could be the best rushing quarterback in the NFL day one, if he were allowed to play from day one. So I mean, there's a balance there. Yeah, there's
There
a
is.
balance there, but there's so much to work with, uh, with all the intangibles, the leadership skills, the qualities,
Mm-hmm.
all the work ethic, the way that he goes through progressions and stuff. There's a lot to work with there, but the footwork and the accuracy on the platform stuff, and it's so far, the variance is so high that he's not ready. He's just not. And you gotta hope that he can be, but you've got to develop him. You've got to take the time. And so, the hope is Seattle is run by a very competent coaching staff, and they are. And there's no pressure for him to start right away because of Sam Darnold and even Drew Lock, that you can develop all this stuff. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't, the floor is still that based on his size, weight, speed, he could be the best running quarterback in the NFL. So to me, that's the floor. And then if you can develop any of the passing stuff at all, that's the plus stuff that hopefully comes along. And if you hit on this player, he could end up being all pro, but he's got a ways to go.
He's got a ways to go. And I think that it's important that the Seahawks bring him along slow, because you're going to see it in training camp and you're going to see it in the preseason.
It's going to be exciting.
He's going to be exciting. And people are going to be clamoring to get him on the field. And they need to get him on the field. But I think they need to get him on the field in spots. They need to do what the Saints did with Taysom Hill. And that's use him as a weapon in situations. Let him get on the field, because he makes your team better and more explosive and all those things. But don't make him your full-time starter, because he isn't ready, and you have the opportunity to ruin him because he hasn't had time to make those changes to his game and make them permanent. And he needs to do that. And you mentioned like the 3.1 seconds of time to throw, which was one of the best. Was it fifth best in college football? That would have been pretty poor in the NFL.
Yeah,
because the NFL time to throw is 2.5, 2.6. Sam Darnold last year was 2.4. So
that was the best in the draft class. It wasn't best overall in college football. It was just the best in the draft class.
But still,
the other interesting stat too is he was ranked number 1 in college football on plays after the first read beyond the line of scrimmage. So Milroe had a 93.2 Pro Football Focus pass grade, 35 of 51, 8.3 yards per attempt scrambling as well in the SEC. So, and Ward had a 91.5 Pro Football Focus grade on the same deal. But in the SEC, like, that's translatable, so he's got some translatable things into the NFL, but you're right. He just needs to, that's why I think they give him like 20 plays to learn, 25 plays, right? Total. In hopes that
his entire playbook.
Guy, in hopes that this guy masters these plays, feels very comfortable and confident throwing, being on platform, the timing, all that stuff. In fact, I think that you could argue that they start him out in a timing-based like platform,
like
where
an old school West Coast offense.
Everything's based on timing. When Milroe comes in, the receivers automatically adjust. They know that they've got to break at this certain spot, and ball's going to be there. And I think that's going to work best for him as he becomes accustomed to the speed of the NFL and all of the things. And then you let him use his feet, to run, because that's where he's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited. I mean, granted, I'm going to be right there with you. It's like, you're going to watch him in preseason, you're going to watch him in camp, and he's going to dazzle.
Be exciting. Yeah.
Like on 90% of the plays, because, it's preseason. You got to take it with a grain of salt, but those 90% plays are just going to be like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, did you see him get to the edge and gain that extra, 7 yards or whatever. And it was like, that's his like everyday bread and butter stuff.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, fans are going to have to show some we're going to have to show some patience.
We're going to have to show some patience. It's going to be hard. It really is, because when in training camp where it's not full speed, and in the preseason where it's really vanilla up front as far as what the defenses do,
and he only has a handful of plays he has to worry about.
And he's been playing will be playing against backups and third stringers and guys that won't even be in the league next, come week one. He's going to look great, and people are going to have to be ready to be patient, and it's going to be hard. It really is, because I think athletically he's special. He is special. The comparisons to Lamar Jackson, as far as his running ability, are not overblown. Lamar is a fantastic passer at this stage in his career too, whereas Milroe is very inaccurate comparatively. But
how do you compare? How do you align the word inaccurate with a 65% completion rate percentage, which is just as good as what Darnold had in the NFL last year? How do you align those two things that seem...
Completion percentage isn't an accuracy metric. It's often a decision-making metric, but what were the yards after completion numbers, right? Because how many times did guys have to go to the ground to catch a ball
that's exactly right, Keith.
If he'd thrown it accurately, they could have still been running, right? Or they had to jump up to get a pass, and therefore made the catch and then got tackled rather than being able to catch it in stride. Like, there were a lot of off-target throws that were still completable, but they weren't on target. And in the NFL versus college football, the coverage is a lot tighter. You're off target like that might be intercepted instead of, caught and dropped right there. Right?
Yes.
In college football, you're like, oh, it would have been nice if it was on target because it would have, would have been more yards. In the NFL, that same exact throw might have been picked, because the coverage is tighter, the defenders are better. The windows, you're throwing windows are smaller. But
thank you for explaining that for everyone.
So but his accuracy issues are fixable at this point. This is not a Tim Tebow situation, right? Tim Tebow was the thought of as being, super inaccurate to the point where, like, he would miss guys wide open, or he would miss guys in practice when there was no defense and miss them by 10 yards. Milroe won't do that. His accuracy problems are fixable because they're all platform issue. They're not arm issue. He needs to learn to be disciplined with his feet and his hips and to square up properly before making throws. And instead he's, just all arm and none of the lower body stuff. And that pulls his arm away from where he wants to throw it at times. And that's why it's inaccurate. If he becomes more disciplined on the lower body, on those throws, his accuracy will be fine. He may not be the most accurate quarterback ever. He'll probably never end up being, Joe Montana. But Montana never had his speed and athleticism. So, okay, fine. But he won't be the guy that we saw in college who would miss guys, where they, guys standing in a soft spot in a zone and has to go down because the ball's at his feet. And that kind of stuff. Like, I think we can safely assume that with proper coaching and the fact that he's not going to be expected to go out there and win games every week as the starting quarterback, that he's going to be able to put in the work and put in the time to fix the mechanical problems that he has.
Yeah. So do you expect that to emerge in 2026 or sometime in late 2025, or can we expect 2027 type of development here?
I think you're going to start to see it in 2026. There's going to be we may think we see it in 2025 because we've limited his role to 10 or 15 plays a game. We've limited his playbook to only about 20, 25 plays at the max. He's only learning 10% of the playbook, that kind of stuff.
He'll
So
learn a lot of it, but he won't run it in a game.
he won't run it. Yeah. I mean, his mastery of it will be
Yes.
10% of the playbook,
Yes.
and that kind of stuff. So it's, we may think we see it, but it's different when you're out there trying to do everything. And that's what, we may see that in 2026, because if he gets a full season under his belt where he is able to focus on the things he needs to focus on, and just ingrain that in, muscle memory, and then spend another off season just continuing to work on it and ingraining it into muscle, we may start to see it in 2026. And if they get where they're confident in his ability to make those adjustments and have better mechanics overall, honestly, the kid deserves an opportunity to compete for that starting job, because he's going to be dynamic. And when Lamar Jackson came out, people were worried that, oh, he's a runner and not a thrower. He was a much more polished thrower than Jalen Milroe is. But he dropped down into the 20s in the draft because of that perception. And I think what everybody who is the detractors missed is that Lamar Jackson excelled at creating explosive plays with his arm, with his legs, with just in the offense. He excelled at creating explosive plays. And Jalen Milroe has that same talent. Go watch his college game. He creates explosive plays, both with his arm and with his legs. And that is what you want out of a quarterback. You want them to create those explosive plays for you. So if they can fix the little things so that he's not losing games for him by throwing a bunch of interceptions, his ability to create explosive plays will be hard to keep off the field.
Yeah. So a fun exercise where you're not trying to find all his flaws, and you're not trying to find all the bad plays, all that stuff. Just go watch some highlights, because he makes throws. Like, we can sit here and talk about him not being able to throw and accuracy, and there's a variance, blah, 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 blah. You go watch a highlight package of him.
Oh, highlight package, and you're just going to be drooling. It's going to be like, this is going to be fun.
Any throw that you're going to need to have him make in the NFL. Yep. Like, and he looks amazing, like the arm strength. Like, he can fire a missile 50 yards down the field and hit a guy in stride, and you're going like, what's the problem? What's the problem with that?
But when he throws the ball 50 yards downfield, watch his feet and his hips. They're perfect. Because when he knows he has to get the ball that far down the field, he sets his feet properly, and he has good mechanics with his arms. So of course it's accurate. But go watch him. If you watch it rather than a highlight reel, if you just go queue up a game, go watch, go watch a football game that they played last year. You're going to see plenty of plays where he has an open guy and just doesn't do anything with the lower half of his body, and throws the ball with some weird mechanic across his shoulder because he didn't use the rest of his body. He just is all arm.
He's trying to use his athleticism to make the completion rather than a fundamental base.
Yeah. And when he does that, he throws the ball at someone's foot, or he throws it over their head, or that kind of stuff. But when he sets his feet properly, which he has to on the deep throws, it's pretty. That's how he generates all those explosive plays, because he's great with his legs. We all know that. The running ability is like insane. And he's great deep down the field. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of excitement, because that's what we're going to see from him.
Yeah.
Because when he comes into games and he's going to run that wildcat package, that the Taysom Hill roll, he's either going to be running the ball, or it's going to be some sort of RPO where someone's going deep, and you've got Valdez Scantling, 45 yards downfield, running away from a defender. So
if you want to get on the hype train, I would suggest following like Brian Nemhauser, because he's going to be at training camp. He's got credentials now with his channel. Good for him. And he's going to be there, and he's going to see all this, and he's not going to be like Brady Henderson. He's not going to be like some of the other guys where they'll come out with an article, and then you read about it the next day and it's somewhat limited, and you'll read a little blurb about a completion. But Brian will get on and get onto YouTube on a daily basis, and will invite people on, and the hype, the oh my God, I saw this and it was amazing. That sort of, which is fine, totally fine. But I think he's going to get everyone pretty pumped about this particular player and a few others. But Jalen Milroe is going to be a guy that excels in camp. Like, there's going to be a mistake, but those things will be completely written off or overshadowed by all the most dynamic things you've seen from a player in camp in like years. Will be the narrative. Like, this guy is moving like a running back in Nick Emanwari's body at 4.38 speed, right? It's like, it's going to be one of those deals where you're like, oh my God, we have to get this guy on the field.
It's going to be like early Russell Wilson, where just, it was a highlight reel at practice. He was completing the ball deep down the field, play after play, and when there's pressure, he was moving and getting out of the pocket and doing fun things, and it's gonna be a lot like early Russell Wilson, but but the difference is that the difference is that early Russell Wilson was mechanically very good. And his game translated very quickly for that reason. Milroe's game is mechanically challenged, and it's going to take time. And I hope people are willing to be patient and give him time, because I think if they do and they develop him properly, that is going to be one of those draft picks that defines a decade of Seahawks football. The same way that Russell Wilson was a draft pick that defined a decade of Seahawks football.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true. Let's not get ahead of ourselves too much. I agree with all of what you said. And it's like, it's kind of like when DK Metcalf was drafted. It's like, okay, here's this dude, and he's showing up in camp, and it's real. It's going to happen. We have to temper our, first year expectations. And I think we're gonna have to do that with this prospect, and we're gonna have to do it over and over until he proves us wrong. Right. Until we get to game 4 and he's done 4 games in a row where he's rushed for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns or some weird, crazy thing. And defenses just can't figure him out. They can't stop him. And we can throw it out there anytime we want. And it's going to be one of those like, we just have to like be happy and be enthusiastic and have a great time with it, but also kind of try to be real. And it's going to be a challenge, but it'll be super fun. Super fun. All right. Anything else about the quarterback room? How do you feel overall, I guess?
I think overall I feel pretty good. I mean, I don't feel like outstanding about it because there's no Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes ready to come in and just be awesome and be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. There's a lot of potential in Milroe, and there's a steady presence in Sam Darnold.
Does Sam Darnold, all Sam Darnold has to do is be 2005 Matt Hasselbeck, and I'd be just thrilled.
That's all he has to do.
Just take command.
Oh, wow.
Get the ball out, play well, go to the Super Bowl.
All you have to do.
Come on. Right? I just want to win I just want to win a playoff game again. Like
if Sam Darnold can be 2024 Sam Darnold, this team will be great. That's what he has to do. He has to change teams to a slightly different scheme. It's not even that different, but a slightly different scheme, a different set of weapons, and be the same guy. There's reason to think he'll regress and he won't be quite the same guy. And I think that's where everyone's fears comes in, including mine. Sure. But if he can be the same guy, this team will be good. This team will be
hope, fear.
Yeah.
Wait, which one are we going to glob onto?
Before we go,
yes.
Can we now say that the Sam Howell trade, giving up the 4th and a 6th round draft pick to Washington to get him, was a bad move?
Why is that?
Because they gave up significant draft capital for him. He came in, he did nothing, and they valued him so little that they gave him up for nothing but a pick swap and moving up 20 spots in a late round.
Kind of an interesting way to approach intelligence by the the general manager and talent evaluators on this roster. It's like, I get it. I get the move. You got to take your shots, man. And this kid had a rather eye-opening first year of success in the NFL, and had all that experience, and he wasn't being called in to be a starter or compete for the starting job right away, but just kind of coming in. I get the move. Did we pay too much? That's the hardest part to evaluate post-trade, because hindsight is always 20/20 in that respect. I thought at the time it was the right move and an opportunity to have a lottery pull again. And I can't fault the trade at the time. Now, can you say, yeah, you lost the trade two years later or whatever, or a year and a half later? Yeah, I mean, I guess you can. You just did. What do you think? Did we really lose, or did we just lose an opportunity? Or did he lose?
I mean, he lost. But I look at, and I go, if they'd brought him in and Geno had been good and he's just stuck behind a player who's playing well, then it happens. They brought him in and Geno was not good. He just wasn't. He played poorly for most of the year, and they never even considered inserting Howell. It was never thought of the part of the thought process. And the moment
he had to come in and play against Green Bay, it was awful.
It was awful. And that, 4th and 6th round draft picks that they traded
things with his performance in Washington, some good, some bad, but nonetheless, he had some great throws, great games, looked competent, could run an offense, did the entire year. Comes in his only opportunity in a game, and it was a disaster. Like, how does that happen? And now that we're hearing about him a little bit, as far as his in the room work ethic, absorbing the playbook, all that kind of stuff, there were struggles there that we just didn't really hear about until he was gone.
I think it comes down to when Washington made a commitment to him, it had a lot to do with they were tanking for a year because they saw a quarterback class coming and they wanted one. And that's why they went with a completely inexperienced 5th round draft pick to be their quarterback. And they did so early in the process, like before free agency started. They said, no, this is what we're doing. But then the coaching staff, knowing that you have to win in this league to keep your job, built a scheme and an offense around him. They kept it simple. They looked at his strengths. They tried to do everything as best they could for this kid. Where in Seattle, when he was asked to come in, he was asked to come in and run an offense that was designed just as it's a full offense. It's not a just for you one player and what your limited skill set is offense. And yeah, it didn't work.
And he got exposed.
He did.
That's why I say he was the loser, because he had an opportunity, and it just didn't work out for him. And now he's definitely a career backup, or viewed that way, I would think, unless he gets another opportunity via injury someday and he needs to come in and he does well. I think he's assigned to the mediocrity of the NFL. So
imagine if Sam Darnold had, when he came in San Francisco for the few snaps he had there, had fallen on his face. Would he have gotten an opportunity in Minnesota? I don't think he would have, but he did well when he came on, and Minnesota knew that they had a rookie that was going to be really young and raw, and they probably wanted someone else to start for the first 6 games or whatever. Brought him in to do that, and then the rookie got hurt, and so he ended up being the starter all year, and now he's got a big money contract because he didn't fall on his face when he had the one opportunity.
Yeah. That does give you another reason for hope that he can repeat this.
Yeah,
he's got a lot riding on the line, really.
Yeah,
Sam Darnold. Yeah,
Sam Darnold is. Now he got paid. The $100 million contract. I doubt he'll see all of that,
but he can get 55 of it anyway.
But it was front loaded.
Yeah.
He actually gets cheaper the longer he's on the 3-year contract. Even though, so the team can get out of the deal after 1 year or after 2 years and be fine. But if Milroe isn't ready, or they just want to have another quarterback there to compete with them and whatever, Darnold gets cheaper and easier to keep every year on that contract.
Who gets us to the Super Bowl first, Sam Darnold or Jalen Milroe?
To the Super Bowl, Jalen Milroe.
Wow.
I think that there's enough
Sam
roster.
Darnold won 14 games for a team last year. He's got that in him.
There's enough roster depth problems. I don't think this is a Super Bowl roster right now. And if you wait a year or 2 years, you're either taking a big step forward with Jalen Milroe, or you're looking at trying to incrementally improve every year with Darnold to get over that hump and get into a Super Bowl. I think the jump that you would get from Milroe, if everything works out with him, is more likely to get you there.
Yeah, he's much more interesting to defend, that's for sure. All right, let's get out of here. The next show is going to be running backs, and we'll go through the entire roster with shows, and that will be fun. And you're coming up on vacation here in a week-ish?
Couple weeks, yep.
2
couple weeks.
That'll be well,
I think we leave on the 22nd. So.
Oh, okay. So we've got some time. And that's it. So you can find Keith on Blue Sky at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. The show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform, YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a like. Leave us a comment. All that good stuff. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.